What is going on, everyone? It's Jacqueline here from Nothing But Tech. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking about the MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro over the last couple of years has been a pretty controversial device. Ask my good friend Brendan Havard and you'll get an earful about all the issues he had with his, rightfully so. But it's been plagued with a lot of issues, keyboard issues, performance issues, and that's been the 13-inch and the 15-inch, but the 15-inch model had a lot more performance issues for some people, and then it was great with performance for others. So you really had to kind of get lucky, but this year, it's gotten a big performance update, and I have the 13-inch model. The 13-inch model didn't have too many performance issues last year. It was definitely limited by its dual-core processor, but this year, they've updated that, so I'm really excited to test it out and see, can you edit off of this? Can it actually be a sustainable computer? So I have the base model, the one that is the lowest end, $1,800, right over the non-touch bar model. So this is the one that was updated with the touch bar and stuff. And it finally has a quad-core processor, which is huge. So I want to basically tell you guys, is it worth it? Can you edit off of here? Can you use this as an overall great computer? But definitely let me know if you'd be interested in seeing my review of a maxed out 13-inch model. Obviously, the main things would be the same. The only difference would be the performance. And I know a lot of you guys were interested to see if the performance was good enough that you could switch to it. And definitely let me know if you want to see a video on the 15-inch also, because I'll make both those things happen if you want them. So the main differences here, this year, there wasn't that many hardware differences. The main difference this year is performance. But quickly just touching on the hardware, just in case you hadn't heard about last year. It's still a unibody metal build with sharp corners and a really sturdy one-handable hinge. The only main design difference is an added layer of protection underneath the keys so dirt doesn't get in and ruin the entire computer basically. And this makes the keys feel a little damper almost, like when I'm typing on them. The sound isn't as loud. This is really hard to capture on video. It almost sounds the same as the previous model when you do that on video, but it feels a little different when you're typing on it, and it's definitely a lot quieter. I've noticed when typing on my older MacBook Pro and this newer one. So the keys are still that butterfly mechanism. Love it or hate it, that's the direction of Apple's keyboards right now. I actually really like it. I'm a really fast typer on it now because I've been using it for 2 years, so it's just something that you'll get used to over time. But it definitely has a bit of a time period where you have to get used to it. Would I like more key travel? Maybe. Do I hate this keyboard? Definitely not. So last year's 13-inch worked for students, but not really for editing because it was a dual-core processor, as I already said. But this model with a quad-core processor should offer a significant performance upgrade. The model that I have here, just for some reference, is a Core i5 clocked in at 2.3 GHz, 8 GB of RAM, and 256 GB of a solid-state storage. So the storage is really fast. It's definitely going to help if you edit off of the storage on here. But if you are going to do that, I would recommend getting maybe a 1 TB storage system, just because, especially if you're shooting in 4K like I am, those file sizes really add up. So those specs that I just mentioned are going to be more than okay for word processing, streaming Netflix or YouTube, making FaceTime calls, messaging, basically the simple tasks that aren't that taxing on the CPU. It's going to be great for it. But what I wanted to test is, could you use this computer for more than that? Could you edit on it? And it's kind of interesting. So I don't want to start a Premiere versus Final Cut debate in this video. I personally use Final Cut. I did use Premiere for 6 months last year, but I just switched back to Final Cut and I'm happy I did. Final Cut is really well optimized for Apple computers. If you are a Premiere user, I would not recommend getting a new MacBook Pro just because Premiere is not well optimized at all for the hardware on the MacBook Pro. So Final Cut really performs very well on the MacBook Pro. So what I would say is, when I was editing in Premiere, performance was not great. There were some hiccups, dropped frames, it was constantly lagging. I had to really wait my time in using it. In Photoshop, it worked pretty well. I don't do a lot of really intense things in Photoshop, so mainly I'm just outlining things, taking things out of a picture, adding text, so nothing major. I'm probably not the best person to test Photoshop. Lightroom worked as well, so those were okay. They were not great, but they worked okay. Final Cut Pro, on the other hand, worked really well. I was shocked how well this worked because I'm editing all my videos that you guys have seen on a 15-inch MacBook Pro completely spec'd out with a 2.9 GHz processor, that's an i7 processor, 16 GB of RAM, a terabyte of storage, really the top of the line specs for the 2016 model. So I would expect that this would not perform that well because I had to buy that to get a good performance. And while it's true that when you add text tracking and a bunch of other heavy elements, my computer is definitely going to perform significantly better. This computer worked really, really well. Like, I was shocked. I had background rendering on, which is definitely an advantage in Final Cut, but even when I had it off, it performed really well. So what I did is I put in like 2 minutes worth of footage that was really flat footage, and I color graded it, added LUTs, did some cool transitions and effects, but nothing too major, and then I exported that video. So it was a 2-minute timeline of 4K 30 FPS video footage, and it took 1 minute and 32 seconds to export that timeline with background render on when I was doing that. When I did the same type of footage on a different timeline without background rendering, the footage took 1 minute and 55 seconds to export. So that's still really good. Like, that's taking less time than the actual project. It's fast. But you should keep in mind that the computer did get very hot when I was editing and exporting, and that there wasn't any motion tracking or text tracking like a typical video of mine may have. But even still, that was a pretty moderate to intense timeline, and it worked, and it was fast. And I was able to turn on high quality, like prefer quality over performance in Final Cut, and it still played back the footage really smoothly. There was very, very few drop frames. So that was really impressive because these specs are not that great. So here's the deal, it's $1,800 and it worked for editing. I wouldn't say that I would buy this computer to edit all my videos because I could see having performance hiccups when you add in more intense editing and more professional editing. And I would also say that you're probably better off with larger storage. Like, you're gonna need more storage than 256 gigabytes if you're shooting anything on a professional camera in 4K. So kind of my thoughts are when I'm saying who is this for, I wouldn't say it's for the editor necessarily, because you could edit on this probably on the higher end 13-inch and have like no issues and be able to use a lot of different programs. I obviously need to test it before I say that definitively. So honestly, I think that there's 3 people that this computer is good for, and you really have to be specific to these 3 or you might be disappointed. The first one is a student that has a lot of money to spend on a computer like this, and that's not most students. Like, most students I know could not afford an $1,800 computer just to get into the Apple ecosystem of a decent computer. Most people can't do that. But if you could do that, you're going to get a really good trackpad and a really good keyboard and really good speakers. And a lot of students I know also really like the Apple ecosystem, so you're going to get to continue with your iMessage and your FaceTime, AirDrop. It all works really well together. If you're an Apple user, you're going to like this computer. It's going to fit right into your daily life. So that's that person. But realistically, there's not that many students out there that can afford a MacBook Pro of this caliber. And that's just the entry price. You're probably going to want to update the storage. So it's probably going to be a little bit over $1,800, maybe in the 2000s when you had AppleCare and stuff like that. And then the second person I would say this is for is like the working professional. So someone that's maybe doing emails and maybe word processing, Excel, maybe making the occasional presentation using Final Cut a little bit, maybe editing an occasional photo, but that creative stuff is not their primary use for this computer. This is going to be great for you because it's a really portable computer at that 13-inch size. It's really light, so this is a great like travel companion for you. And it also will work really well if you're in a office that uses other Macs with AirDrop and stuff. It's just a really convenient computer if you're in an office that is like an Apple ecosystem office. And the third person I would say is maybe the YouTuber that doesn't have enough money for the 15-inch, but is also on an older 13-inch or 15-inch from a couple years ago. This is going to offer a big performance update, especially if you spec a couple things out. But even at the $1,800 price, you're going to get pretty good performance in Final Cut, and especially if you're someone that travels a lot, this is a great travel companion because it's really small and portable, and the battery life is pretty good on the 13-inch. So that's kind of who I think it's for. It's kind of a hard thing to say though, because if they were to buy a used 15-inch from last year and they didn't care that much about portability, they're probably going to get some better performance. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I enjoyed it. I was actually really surprised by how well it performed in certain applications. But let me know what you think of the computer. Let me know if you want the maxed out 13-inch review, the 15-inch review. Let me know. But thank you guys all so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe right here. Watch my other content right here. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.